Hi guys, welcome to the penetration testing with FIXITGEARWARE-SECURITY. Today it's not an official training section, but we try to use the free Saturday or the extra Saturday in the month of May to shoot this penetration testing course and training as a form of trying to make you, our various social media subscribers and family, to get familiar with the basics or the foundation of various web application vulnerabilities. So this training today is a continuation of access control vulnerabilities, and today's focus is going to be on function level access control vulnerability, sub vulnerability in access control security weakness on web applications. So previously we have discussed about IDOR as a form of access control vulnerability, but today we are taking another dimension to talk about Flac, which is also known as the function level access control vulnerability. So after this training, you'll be able to understand a few of the concepts on how to spot a function level access control vulnerability, and of course learn how to prefer mitigative steps to ensure that these vulnerabilities are patched, especially if you're participating in a bug bounty related activities when writing your report that you intend to submit to the triager or to the security representative of that particular bug program which you're participating in. So with that being said, let's get started. So today's lab is going to be a fusion lab, which involves a theoretical and practical aspect of the lab today. In the first point, we'll be discussing a quick definition of function level access control with a few examples to explain the definition. Then after that, we are going to solve two labs under function level access control using the vulnerable web application known as WebGoat, infused with AI and BobSuit, the community edition. After we're done, we are going to move further to describe the mitigative steps for function level access control vulnerabilities, which is generic in this aspect. These mitigative steps we're talking about, we believe that you getting familiarized with these mitigative steps will also give you a proper idea about this vulnerability and encourage you to look further or read more on information about this vulnerability. Then finally, we're going to demonstrate with Python code an example of server-side security implementation to mitigate a vulnerability that we uncovered from a perspective of role-based access control. So this is like the two labs we're going to solve today, which we are going to provide a solution to. We're going to show you how you can implement access control based on role to ensure that such vulnerability would not be exploited if you ever encounter this in real life examples or real life events where you're testing applications that are vulnerable based on lack of proper functions implemented. So it's not going to take much time. We're just going to make this video short and pick as much information as you can and learn. And if you have any other things that is confusing regarding the training for today, please do not hesitate to drop a comment or tag us to explain further by replying the series of questions you will be asking us. So with that being said, let's get started. So when we talk about missing function level access control, we're talking about a vulnerability or security weakness that exists in a web application due to lack of proper restrictions in terms of users' access to certain functionalities, which is related to their roles or the permissions they have or they should have to have access to such functionalities. So for example, let's say FIXITGEARWARE.com is our website, right? Now, a user who is not an admin tries to access our website and they cannot access it. But on further digging into the source code, they found out the path that leads to the admin dashboard. So when they found out this path, then they tried using this path to, view them under the browser to see if the dashboard will be loaded that is, assigned to the admin of FIXITGEARWARE.com. So if that dashboard is able to load and display the admin functionalities, without the user being an admin or having the authorization to view such dashboard. We can say there is a function level access control vulnerability that exists. So the user who is viewing that functionalities or the functions that is related to the admin is not an admin, but in this case, because of lack of restrictions on the aspect of that template, the user is able to access the dashboard despite not being an admin of FIXITGEARWARE.com. So now we have understood what a function level access control is and how the vulnerability looks like with this short example. How do hackers proceed to find hidden paths to uncover the Flac vulnerability? So first, when you use your browser, we know we have what we call the developer tools. So the developer tools is some sort of function that is provided in the browser or client side of our web application, which enables a software developer or security researcher to view the function of that application without, physically being present on the server hosting that application. So some of these functionalities are like the CSS, the HTML, the JavaScript. The developer tools also allows you to execute certain functions or run codes via the console environment. Now, when you get a website or you're testing for a web application, you need to use the developer tools to view the elements or source code. Then when you view this source code or elements, try to understand how these codes are written, the attributes. Like in CSS, there are certain attributes that states that certain functions are to be hidden and not visible to the human eye. Or let's say the JavaScript, you want to see how the source code of the JavaScript is calling the environment from the server to, print out whatever information or display any information on the website that you are trying to test. Now, after you have checked for the source code, if you ever observe things that has to do with hidden parameters, try to see if you can manipulate that hidden parameters. Like, for example, let's say the CSS has visibility none. You can try to see if you can make it visible and, see if the client side can be able to execute these attributes and display those functionalities that are hidden. Now, if in the event of displaying those functions that are hidden or dashboard, try and see if there are paths or URL paths that can be detected. So those paths can be related to UI components that are inaccessible or invisible when you view the source code initially, except when you have manipulated those CSS and JavaScript codes. So once you're able to get those paths, which are also known as template, of the UI or the user's interface, you can now try to append them to the the primary domain, which is let's say, for example, it's FIXITGEARWARE.com, and the hidden path is like, let's say, /admin/passwords. So if you find /admin/passwords, you can now say FIXITGEARWARE.com /admin/passwords and put it on the client side, which is the browser, to see if they are going to direct you to the dashboard that pulls out all passwords that are related to admin. Now, when you have tried to access those paths without having the permissions to do so, or there are no security implementation that has been enforced, then you can say you have been able to uncover a Flac vulnerability. So by uncovering this vulnerability, you can now say, either I have to report this to the security researcher or security expert of FIXITGEARWARE.com, or alternatively, I have to report to the appropriate authorities to look into these vulnerabilities and get it fixed. Okay, so this is the basic way to uncover hidden paths to detect Flac. And the reason why you should get familiarized with uncovering hidden paths is that by rights, when a web application is being built, the first layer, like paths or href links that links to other sites of the web application, on the first level to second level can be, properly implemented, because that is the foundation of the web application design. But as the application keeps getting robust and more functionalities are added, there can be an oversight by the web developer of implementing security on certain parts of the web application. So when those securities are not implemented, you can exploit them and, of course, try to manipulate them and uncover sensitive information, which by right you're not supposed to do so. So having said that, what are the key components of the presence of Flac vulnerabilities? Like we said, when you have access to these hidden parts, you try to access them to see if you can view them. So if you're a user and you're able to see the admin dashboard / passwords, it means that there has not been a role-based access control implemented on that UI aspect of the web application, which means it is vulnerable. Means anybody, whether you're an admin or a user or just a random person, you can be able to view the passwords of all admins that are belonging to FIXITGEARWARE-SECURITY. Now, the second one is lack of authorization checks. Let's say you are working for FIXITGEARWARE.com as an employee, but you are working under the marketing department and you have someone else who works under HR. Now, let's say the marketing department decides that they want to promote themselves, which by right, they are not supposed to do so, except they have been nominated, and the HR, which is the human resources manager, has to implement this promotional level. Now, if by some mistake that the marketer tries to access this dashboard that is only supposed to be visible to the HR, and now they try to view their records in terms of their performance index, there should be some sort of restrictions that is in place that if the user is not belonging to the HR, then they are not supposed to view the performance index of all employees in that organization. So whenever you are able to, let's say you belong to a lower rank of an organization, or let's say you elevated your right to a rank of an organization, and you try to use that rank to view a higher rank other than the rank you have elevated yourself, then it means that authorization checks have not been implemented, which means that anyone of a lower rank, as long as they are admin and work for that organization, they can view sensitive information even though they are not authorized to do so. Now, the last aspect that you also check whenever you're checking for Flac vulnerabilities is the presence of unrestricted features. Now, what are the unrestricted features we're talking about here? Let's say why the marketer is able to view information that are only tied to be viewed by the HR. Now, the marketer proceeds to okay, let me modify my records to a higher rank. By right, only the HR is supposed to do so. If the marketer is able to modify their rank on the web application and they are able to modify their records, then we can say that the feature has not been restricted, which shows that the application is vulnerable to function level access control. So whenever you're designing a web application, you should always look at these various components, or let's say whenever you're testing for web applications, you should always look at these vulnerabilities from these three perspectives. First of all, based on role, second, based on authorization, and third, based on unrestricted features. If you test for these functionalities and you're able to detect them in web application, definitely you can say you have uncovered a function level access control. So having said all this, let's now demonstrate a simple web code lab to show you how this works. So we have made a solution on how you can run the latest web code. We'll be showing you later in a video we'll be presenting, not today and not this week, but we would be showing you a video soon on how you can configure your batch script to run the latest web code. So now we'll have to log into our web code application. Now we go to broken access control. We go to missing function level access control. So these two labs has been solved, which we are going to demonstrate, but we have to show you how it works. Now, for example, look at this web interface and look at this form. These are just hyperlinks or href links that do not direct to anywhere of the web application. Now, we're asked to solve this lab. Now we should find two invisible menu items in this menu below that are or would be of interest for attackers or malicious user, and submit the labels of those menu items. So these are considered labels, okay? This on the form, they are considered labels. Now we're asked to find this. So the first thing we did was right click using the developer tools, remember, Then we try to stabilize our web application so we don't hover across the web application. So we click on this, then we come here. Remember to click once you have that pointing arrow. It's going to tell you where the code starts from. Now, we'll say edit as HTML. Now, if we scroll further, you're going to see certain information about this. You see that we have these various functions we just accessed, which do not have hyperlinks. Then we kept on scrolling. Then we saw one which has a path, a href link. This is one of it. Then we scroll further. We saw another one which has another path. Okay. So this one is the first one and this is the second one. And what is the label associated with that? One is users and the other one is config. So we came here, we type users and we type config. These are the two labels, right? And we click on submit. Good. And you can see it says correct and not hard to find. So it means we have solved this lab. So if you go back here again, this is what they said, right? Now, we have been able to uncover these sensitive links. Even though it is hidden, we're able to discover that these links, sorry, not this one. These sensitive links are very important. You can see it's a form and, the action, which is the template. This is the key. This is the value, which is this web code access control hidden menu is where it's redirecting to. So we have discovered that for the users goes to this, and for the config, it goes to this. So this is how hackers try to use the source code to view the CSS, embedded, or view the JavaScript and so on to see if they can find template parts which they can, possibly try to see if they append this and try to hack the target. Now we have solved this lab. Let's now move on to the next lab, which is this. Now, if we move on here to this second lab, it says that as the previous page described, this rely on client obscurity. Okay, pay attention to the comments leaked. You will be able to do some guessing too, and you may need to use another browser and account to log the way. Start with the information you already gathered in hidden menus items. So these are the two hidden menu items, these two. We have access control users admin fix. So this is quite easy because this is like the fix that was implemented, to ensure that this is secured. So when we solve this lab, we used the Bob Suite tool to, assess the spot. So we came here, we copy this, we put this, okay, slash webgoat, because there's webgoat there, right? Then we try assessing it, and it tells us that 404 not found. Okay, so when we got this, it gave us a clue, and by reading back, they are saying that the informations, okay, we found, we can use this information to exploit further about this target, right? So we saw something that has to do with users. So by right, we assume that there might be a table, that has to do with users in this web application. So let's now test if we can access that. So we remove this fix, and we hit users, and it says 404 not found. Now, what did we do next? It's very simple. We came here, we launch our Bob Suite, then we click on next, start. So once our Bob Suite started, the next thing we did was to, go to proxy, turn on our proxy, open in browser, then we turn off the proxy. Good. Now, once our proxy was on, the next thing we did is that we went to webgoat. We put login. Okay. So we use our username and password, and we sign in, right? FIXITGEARWARE-SECURITY. Okay. Then we logged in, right? So after we've logged in, the next thing is we try to access the lab. Good. Now, this is the lab we're trying to solve, right? And previously we got this, right? Good. Now we came here, we tried to access it, and we had this white label error. So what did we do? It's very simple. We came to our proxy, we turned it on, we tried again to access it. Then we came here, we sent to repeater, then we off. Good. Now, when we try to say send, it's giving us status code 415. So we came here, we changed this, we say users, we send, and we got internal server error. So upon investigating further, we came to realize that, okay, maybe we're sending an application type which the web server doesn't accept. So we came here, we wiped this off. Actually, we copied this one, just this, and we wiped out the rest. Okay, then we sent. And by the time we did this, this is what we got. This gives us an idea that we are actually trying to reach the server, but there's something that we're not doing right, which has to do with JSON data type. So very simple. I can implement this, but usually what I just do, I just copy this. I go to my favorite friend, ChatGPT. Just say stay signed out. Modify this to read JSON data types. Put here. Now you can see we have this, right? Good. So I just come here, copy this. I go back to my Bob sheet. I put this, right? Good. Send. Now, when I did this, I still got an error. So to solve this, it's very simple. I came back to the web application and I came back here. I changed this and I said, I want the content type to be application JSON. Then I sent. And immediately we modify the content type that this is what the server is able to pass the information. We got the users function. If we go back to the lab is telling us that we should provide the hash for Jerry's account. So when we go back to our Bob sheet, we intercepted for Tom, we intercepted for Jerry, and we intercepted for Sylvester or Sylvester. I don't know how to pronounce this. So all I just did is just to come here. I copied the hash function for Jerry and I went back to the application. I put the hash and I submitted. And that's how we solve the lab. Now, having solved this lab, it's very easy. You just have to think deeply and be familiarized with directory brute forcing. You can be able to, brute force directory paths that exist in web application as well and test for function level access control. Now, having said this, let's now move on to the slide again and talk about the mitigative steps. When we now have solved this lab, we decided to work on providing mitigative steps on how to enforce security based on this particular vulnerability we served. First of all, implementing and enforcing role-based access control is very important. So me, I'm just a normal user of the web application. So by right, I'm not supposed to be able to view users' information from any tool or from the dashboard. So if roles have been implemented, there would have been a check that, test if I have the access to, or if I belong to that role to be able to view those users. And if I don't belong to that role, then I will not be able to do that. Another security implementation would be attribute-based access control. So let's say I am an admin and somebody has been able to elevate their rights to my level, okay, by, let's say, they used IDOR and they try to modify information to elevate their rights to my level. Then whenever I try to view information on users, there should be an attribute that states that if I am not a super admin, so we have levels of admin, right? I'm an admin, but I'm not a super level admin. So even if the person is lucky enough to elevate, from a normal user to an admin, they should not be able to view information that has to do with information that is only visible to a super admin. So this is where attribute comes in. So if the attributes are being checked and I don't have such attributes, then I should not be able to view information that are very sensitive to users or customers of that organization. Now, the second mitigative step has to do with using enhanced authorization systems such as OAuth and JSON Web Tokens, which is JWT. So if you see from the application, we are able to use the same, cookies to access this other dashboard. So by right, it's supposed to generate, some sort of token, or alternatively use OAuth authorization for me to be able to access that dashboard. But because it's not implemented, I'm able to access it even though I'm a normal user. Now, the third part is verifying permissions on the server side and not relying on client side. So when we talk about server side and client side is that, for example, if I'm not able to view that or capture the traffic using Bobsuit, I can decide to generate code that is able to execute JavaScript, on the client side. In this case, I can just use the console and paste my code there to test. So if I am able to paste my code there and execute it on the client side, which is the browser, if the server is able to capture it and execute it, it's still going to fetch those information that has to do with the hash function numbers and the users of that, that belongs to that table. So that's why we should always implement server-side, security, so that even if malicious code are executed from the client side, you should be able to filter them out or block them. The third aspect is enforcing role based on hierarchy and implementing the principle of least privilege. So when we talk about the security from least privilege, we're speaking from a perspective of, let's say I am a lesser admin or I'm not a super user admin. So when I try to access information that belongs to every users of that organization, there should be a level of privilege I have or information that I'm able to access. So least privilege means that if you're not a super admin, there are certain things you should not be able to perform, which includes viewing information that belongs to users or probably modifying informations. Now, the last part is designing your system to implement zero trust models. So what are zero trust models? Zero trust models are very important, especially when we are looking from the unrestricted features. Okay. So irrespective of where in the network you are, whether you're connecting from the external source or you're in the same VLAN or whatever it is, as long as you want to perform sensitive, actions or sensitive, implementations, the web application should be able to prompt security or trigger security mechanisms to either ask you sensitive information or alert the second party that has to be aware of this, action you're about to take, because they have to authorize this, action. So without them authorizing this action, then this action should not be able to execute. So having said this, let's now look at the code from a Python perspective we uncovered during, searching the source code. So here we have form method action. I mean, basically, if you design web applications that are related to forms, these are the things you're going to see. So the form is going to be there. The method is like basically what action is it? A get? Is it a put? Is it a trace? Is it a patch? Is it a post? Then action is the key, and the value is the template part it is going. So having explained this, if we go down here, how do we now implement security based on role to ensure that that web application is not vulnerable to malicious hacker? It's very simple. We provide some sort of if and else statement. Okay, so we say if current user is not admin, if current user is admin, then remember we called action here as the object, request, argument, get, action, which is the key, then the value here we left it empty. So here we are now saying that if action is equals to view users, return this template. So first of all, the code should be able to check if the user is an admin. Then if the action they're trying to perform is this, then they should be able to see this. If the action is they're trying to perform is this, then they should be able to see this. If the action they are trying to perform is this, they should be able to see this. And if the action they are trying to perform is this, they should be able to see this, as long as they are what? An admin. Else, the template should return this. So if the user wants to view any information and the admin, they can view any of this. But if they're not viewing any of this information, then as long as they are logged in, this should throw back the default admin dashboard, which is of course will be designed in such a way to pull the logged in users information such as profile names, information, content, and so on. Else, if none of these conditions are met, then it should assume that that particular user is just a normal user. Then it should load the user dashboard.html. So basically, this can be the dashboard that pulls also individually information about that specific user, especially if you're very familiar in designing web applications. Either you use frameworks or Laravel, for example, you can design your Blade template to pull information from the database. And of course, this information can be profile information, names, contact, pictures, and so on. So you can see how we provide solution from the server side. This is how the security should be implemented based on role. Okay. Remember, it is not restricted to roles. It can expand to attributes. It can expand to zero trust. It can expand to whatever forms of security you want to implement. But the most important thing to note is that when dealing with a function level access control, ensure that the appropriate security measures are implemented so that no one can be able to exploit the application. Even if they try to, they have to go through some security implementations that they need to provide very, very important information or answers to before they are able to perform such actions. So in a situation they are not able to provide those answers, then the application will either hit them with a 404 or 403 forbidden page. So that is all for this training, and I hope you have learned something new. I'm sorry if the video is not so clear. We actually been busy with works, project, and some sort of like a bit down, but it's all good. We're here today to shoot this video, and we intend to do this today, and we're happy we did so. So want to say thank you for listening and watching this video. Please share with your friends, and next week is going to be our proper penetration testing. We're looking towards something different. Either we do a penetration testing course, or alternatively, we can just do a tools demonstration for hacking. Since it's been long, we have talked about tools. So we look forward to that. And what else? Thank you and bye for now.